This is Prabhakar Valivati from MentorSquare. And over the next few minutes, what I will talk about is if you're going to be looking to start a business, whatever be your business, how do you go about assessing how much money you require in your business? How do you go about assessing how much money you need in your business to get your business off the ground or get your first customers? And how much money do you need in the business before your revenues can cover your costs? That's before you reach break even. That's what I'm going to talk to you about over the next few minutes. A banker friend of mine recently mentioned that in Bangalore, in the southern part of India alone, there are almost 1,000 properties started by property developers and left halfway, unfinished. And the major reason why these properties have been left unfinished is that the property developers who had assumed a certain source of funds suddenly found that they could not get those funds. So they ran out of their equity, they ran out of their working capital, and the businesses had to pretty much come to a halt. Now, can you imagine how these developers may be feeling in terms of their motivation and in terms of the money which has got locked up in the business which they're not able to release? Now, over the next few minutes, what I will talk about is how you can avoid the pitfalls some of these developers have found themselves in. Now, you have decided to go after a certain market. You know what the market opportunity is. You know what kind of customers they may be out there, and you know how you plan to go and make and sell your product. You know your business model. Now, how do you know all these things? Now, quite possibly in the early days, even before you started your business, you spent some time talking to some customers or potential customers. You spent some time understanding how big the opportunity is or how attractive the opportunity is. Maybe you hired an outside market research agency to give you this information. And maybe you spent some time, effort, and money trying to understand what kind of technologies are there in order to make the product which you intend to make and sell in the market. And then you thought about what kind of legal entity may be appropriate, and you probably went and hired a legal advisor or a chartered accountant. Now, in order to get yourself to a situation where you're now ready to get started, let's say you've spent a sum of money, which is, let's say, A. In accounting parlance, these are referred to as preliminary costs. Having done that, you need to start looking at making capital investments. You need to start getting an infrastructure, including equipment, to start making the product which you intend to make. Now, that will mean taking a building on hire or lease, getting equipment, etc. All these things take time. And in the interim, you may actually hire a few employees. You may get some raw material. You may try and hire a production advisor or a production manager who's actually going to do the conversion of raw material into the product which you want. So in order to create a prototype, it may take you anywhere from 3 months to 15 months or 18 months depending on what product you're going to make. In this interim, you need a lot of money. You need a lot of money to keep the business going. So prototyping, let's say, will cost you a sum of money B. Now, having done that, you need to reach out to your potential customers. Maybe you've identified 1 or 2 or 3 potential customers to whom you'll reach out. So you will incur 2 kinds of costs as you're reaching out to them. One is, of course, a plain sales cost. You or your sales manager or a sales team will keep talking to them, and they may have to make multiple trips or visits to a customer in order to get a customer interested in your product. So you're going to incur some sales costs. Now, quite possibly, you're looking to reach out to a wider group of customers, so you may do a lot of sampling of your product across multiple customers. You may demonstrate your product across multiple customers. Maybe you participate in a trade show or an exhibition. Now, these are all typically marketing costs. Now, having done this, and perhaps having got a customer interested in using your product in the initial days, maybe you need to spend a certain amount of money on reworking your product. The product, your prototype which came out, may not exactly meet a customer's requirements. The prototype may not exactly deliver the intended or promised benefits. So you need to spend a certain amount of time and perhaps quite a bit of money in reworking the product. Especially if you're making medical products, you need to be absolutely sure that your product is delivering the promised benefits. Now, to do this and therefore get your customer interested, perhaps you'll spend a sum of money which is C. Now A plus B plus C pretty much puts you in a position to get your first customer and therefore gets your business off the ground. But that is not enough because you have continuing costs. Your first customer or the revenues from your first customer may not be enough for you to cover your costs. You may still be running cash flow deficits. So you have ongoing costs, and these ongoing costs are perhaps to acquire new customers and therefore keep your operations going. So till such time you get revenues which are equal to the costs you're incurring, you will have to continue to expend money. So let's say the sum of money is D. So therefore, what you need to do before embarking on a business is you need to know that A, you need a sum of money which is equal to A plus B plus C plus D. B, quite possibly you made some assumptions. You made some assumptions about when customers will buy, how much they will pay you, when you can produce the product and deliver to them, and so on. Look at all your assumptions. What may go wrong? And plan assuming the worst conditions. Therefore, if you think that you can get everything right in, say, 6 months or 1 year, maybe it will take 15 months. Budget for that. And therefore, be very clear upfront, ladies and gentlemen, that before you embark on a business, this is the sum of money you need. A plus B plus C plus D. Remember, you won't need all the money on day one. You will need it over a period of time. But you must know the amount you need. You must know when you need it. And of course, you need to know how you can get this money. What are the possible sources of this money? Now, after you know that this is the kind of money you need, and this is when you need the money, you may embark on another exercise as to how you can reduce your initial capital outlay on your business. How do you reduce your initial capital? There are many ways to look at it, and depending on the nature of your business, you can look at which of these is relevant to you. Perhaps instead of buying something, you can rent it. Maybe you can rent some equipment, or you can rent some capacity from somebody else. Instead of buying land, perhaps you can lease a factory. Whatever you can do in terms of renting rather than buying will reduce your initial capital. Now, instead of investing in all the capital equipment required to make the prototype, can you get the prototype done somewhere else? Can you get part of your production done outside? Suppose you have a certain technology which you need to use to make your product. Can the technology provider come in as an equity partner in your business? So rather than paying the technology partner money or a royalty, you bring the technology partner as a shareholder in your business. Is it possible in your business at all? If it is, please consider that. In the early days, you may not be able to attract employees unless you're willing to pay them market salaries. But paying them market salaries will push your costs up. Now, is there any way you can reduce employee costs? Is there a way by which you can give them a certain minimum salary, promise them incentives based on performance, or perhaps offer them shares in your company so that they can make more money tomorrow rather than making a certain sum of money today? Now, is that possible at all in your business? Whatever activities are required to go and reach out to customers, qualify your customers, get leads, and so on, is it possible to use an outside agency to get your sales process started, to qualify leads? In other words, ladies and gentlemen, is there any way at all where some aspects of your business, or rather where in some aspects of your business you can minimize the capital outlay and therefore minimize the overall capital outlay in the business? This is one thing you need to seriously think about as you embark on a project, because this is one of the best ways of ensuring that your initial capital is not as high as you originally thought. Now, what might happen if you do not plan adequately well beforehand about how much money you require and when and from where? Now, poor capital planning always stalls business. The example I gave you about the property developers who are now sitting on unsold inventory, actually incomplete projects, primarily because they assume they will get customer advances or bank loans, and neither of these happen. Now, because of which the business is stalled. Their motivation and credibility have come down. And so any business which stalls and is not going forward is definitely going to bring in motivation and credibility problems. So by not planning properly in your business, you can actually be allowing your business to suffer later. So you should know what you need, when you need, your sources, what kind of risks might be there, and how to address these risks. Now, Getting your business off the ground and getting your business to a stage where your revenues meet costs, both of them are fairly daunting, difficult things. But if you can approach this in a very considered way, starting with assessing how much money you need and planning assuming worst conditions, it increases the probability of getting your business off the ground and getting your business to a stage where you start breaking even. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. This is Prabhakar Valivati from MentorSquare.